Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I thought it was time that I did a reaction to the thing that a lot of people have been asking me about, which is obviously the sad news of Andrew Tate's spiritual suicide. And I've got to be honest, I've not really... I don't really know much about Andrew Tate. I don't know much about his history or his background. I know he's a bit of a controversial figure because of some things that he said. And I've deliberately not gone to do lots of research about him so that I can do a response video to what he has said as he says it. However, I do have some initial thoughts even before we listen to the reaction, and it's something that I've noticed in the Islamic dawah scene, which is their new strategy of targeting celebrities. I mean, it's not a new strategy. They've been doing it in the boxing world for years, but now they're doing it more generally. And sadly, you know, Jonathan Pagano and Jordan Peterson have helped in that because they've given certain figures credibility that they did not really deserve. However, it is what it is. And I think as Christians, we need to step up our game and we need to do some reflection work about how we are doing evangelism in the West and whether we can do it better, and how we would go about doing that as Christians. That being said, this is obviously a reaction video to Andrew Tate in his own words, and it's also a message really to people who are fans of Andrew Tate. So the little bit that I know about him is he's some kind of kickboxing, I don't know if he's a champion or just a contender, but here he is, and we're going to listen to him in his own words. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and stop and respond as I need to. He's going to explain why he's become a Muslim, and I'm going to respond as necessary. So let's get into this. I'll just do a sound check first, make sure that you guys can hear the video, and if you can't, so I'm just going to play it and I'm just going to see
topic, especially in the Muslim.
Can you guys hear that?
About
do you want to just confirm that you can hear that?
Story, like what happened exactly?
Put
I think a lot of
yes,
people have been following me for a while.
2 for no. Can you hear that, guys?
Of Islam for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
I was born in a Christian country. I was raised as
just
a Christian.
Wait for you to
and I've always been very respectful of
respond.
Islam, and it's become more and more obvious to me and more pertinent that
can you hear
Islam
that, guys?
is the last religion on the planet. When I talk about Islam, because I'm new to it, I'm a little bit careful, right?
Can you hear that,
guys?
Can you hear
that?
that?
There's so much I need to learn. I know I'm on a learning
Can you hear
journey.
that, guys?
I'm not here to sit here and talk scripture. I don't know those things yet. I'm
right.
here to learn.
Thank you very much. Right then.
Thank you.
Let's go back and start the video again then.
I wanted to ask you now, because this is the hot topic, especially in the Muslim community, about your conversion.
Yeah.
So tell us the story, like what happened exactly.
Well, I think a lot of people who've been following me for a while understand that I've been very respectful of Islam for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
I was born in a Christian country. I was raised as a Christian, and I've always been very respectful of Islam. And it's become more and more obvious to me and more pertinent that Islam is the last religion on the planet. when I talk about Islam, because I'm new to it,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit careful, right? Because
I mean, my very first thoughts are, you know, my very first thoughts are this claim that he was raised as a Christian. Obviously, I can't dispute that. Only he knows whether he was raised as a Christian or not. But certainly from everything that I hear about his lifestyle before becoming a Muslim, it's clear to me that that Christianity didn't penetrate deep within his soul. So I do wonder if this debate, if this interview is, he's going to try and present himself as some kind of Christian at all. But being raised as a Christian is obviously not the same as being a Christian. So, and there's nothing to suggest from anything I've heard that Christianity was something meaningful to him.
I'm new to it. I'm certainly not a scholar. There's so much I need to learn. I know I'm on a learning journey. I'm not here to sit there and talk scripture. I don't know those things yet. I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
But
and we're here at your assistance.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it feels like the last religion on earth. I feel like there's no other religion. People say to me, why did you convert? I said, I don't really feel it as a conversion. It's almost like I knew God was real and now I've become religious. And they say, oh, you were religious before. I was like, religious before how? Christian? What does Christian mean? Like, who's not a Christian? You go to Christian nations and everyone says they're a Christian. Look how they live their lives. Go into the average church. Is anyone actually fearful of God? Anybody? No. The girls are out on Saturday night drinking and then they turn up to church because their parents made them. Like, there's no sub.
Okay, so it didn't take Andrew long to start playing into Christophobic tropes and Christophobic stereotypes. Now, I don't know if he's inculcated these because he was surrounded by Muslims, because he had Muslim friends and they've kind of drip fed him this kind of narrative. He asked the question, what is a Christian? Well, Andrew, the answer to that question, if you had bothered to even do some basic reading about the Christian faith, is that a Christian is a student of Christ. And is there fearfulness about God? Yeah, sure. I've met loads of Christians who live a fearful life about God. And they go about their lives seeking to be holy and to live their lives truthfully according to our faith, not going out getting drunk, not sleeping around, not, behaving in a way that you're describing the West as. Anyone with a brain can recognize that the West and Christianity are two different things. It's a shame that you haven't bothered to engage that brain, because if you had bothered to engage it, would you realize that Christians and Western liberalism are not the same thing? It's also very clear to me that you haven't met many Christians, because if you had met many Christians, you'd realize that actually there's plenty of Christians out there living their lives in reverence and awe of God, and seeking to apply that faith to their life, living chaste, living moderately, living modestly, living humbly. Something incidentally from the little bits that I've gleaned about your life before your conversion to Islam, none of which are markers of your life before your conversion to Islam. So who are you to criticize Christians, frankly? What makes you the expert to speak about a Christian West? Clearly, clearly it sounds to me like you've been drip fed anti-Christian tropes and now you're just parroting them off. So let's continue to see what else you've got to say. Not off to a great start, Andrew.
Substance to the religion, and also Islam very closely reflects.
Again, Christians have fought and died for their faith in countless places. Christians in Nigeria are dying by their tens and thousands rather than give in to Islamist bullies, whom you seem to now associate yourself with. So please don't talk to us about seriousness of faith.
It's my personal beliefs. Through my personal life, I've learned that if you don't have standards and you're not a strong person who's prepared to defend his ideas, you'll be crushed.
Yes.
And we look at most religions in the world today, which are not prepared to defend their ideas. What's happened to them? They're just getting crushed. And now we have Christianity as an idea, which has basically said, well, we can't set any firm rules because everyone will just quit. So instead, let's make it so easy to be a Christian that nobody has to put any effort in.
Yeah.
And then accept everybody no matter what. And hopefully we can keep the church doors open. That's not God to me, you know?
Yeah.
God to me is strong. God to me is something to be feared.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that people are afraid to mock.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that you have to go out of your way to prove something to. God to me has red lines.
Yeah.
Like God to me represents the Islamic faith. The Christian God to me, I don't see God. I can't.
So, I mean, that's quite a statement, and there's a lot in there. There is a lot in there. Firstly, again, he demonstrates zero understanding of the Christian faith, because the Christian faith is not a free-for-all. Again, he is talking about Christophobic tropes that his Muslim friends have probably been repeating in his ear for quite a long time, pointing out to folks examples of Christians, and he's applying that and thinking that that is Christianity. Christianity teaches freedom to do good. It doesn't teach freedom to do evil. Andrew, I mean, again, mate, if you had bothered to pick up a book, if you had bothered to speak to any knowledgeable Christian, they would have told you this. So I don't understand how you've managed to get this far and you haven't learned that. So obviously what he's making here is a sociological observation. He's looking at, for instance, cultural Christianity. He's looking at things like great swathes of, say, the Church of England or great swathes of the Lutheran Church, where they are essentially civic religions or NGO churches which have lost their Christian identity and seek to replace it with civic ritual or reinventing the purpose of a church to be an NGO. That's not real Christianity. Real Christianity is about following and being a student of Christ, who calls us to live a virtuous and heroic life. Again, Andrew, if you'd bothered to speak to any real Christians, you might have learned this, but clearly you haven't been. You've looked at the West through Muslim eyes, and you have seen a false criticism of Christianity, which is a real criticism of Western liberalism, and where obviously churches and fellowships have embraced that liberalism. They've obviously repeated parrot fashion that liberalism, but that isn't Christianity. That is civic religion, and these things are different. Now, it tells me something. It tells me that the thing that you value the most is strength. You've mentioned it a couple of times now in your statement, and you seem to think that strength is the marker of what is truth. And that's a false logic. Might doesn't make right. Anyone who's done even basic political philosophy recognizes this. Truth is not necessarily demonstrated through strength, though obviously truth doesn't change. The real kind of strength is the kind of strength that that doesn't change despite circumstances, that doesn't change in the face of oppression or aggression. It's the kind of faith that Christians teach about our martyrs and about our confessors, those who have suffered for the faith, like the Christians in Nigeria who are being persecuted, or the Christians in Egypt who are being persecuted and have yet withstood 1400 years of constant persecution and have never changed their faith. And I mention Egypt because of the company that you're keeping, Andrew. The reality is that's real strength. is that unwavering, unchanging nature of what it means to be a Christian as embodied by our martyrs and confessors. Strength, however, doesn't equal truth. Truth can also be gentle. It can also be soft. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the context. Truth is about a description that matches reality, a narrative that matches reality. That's what decides what is truth, not what is strong. And unfortunately, you have interpreted what is truth through the wrong value system. Truth is that which is accurate, not that which is aligns to reality, not that which is strong. Now, it seems to me that your respect for Islam and your empathy for Islam has meant that you have absorbed Muslim criticisms of the West and their ignorance of the church, and then you've sort of applied that yourself because you saw the West and the church through Muslim eyes. And I encourage you, before you make grandiose statements about the Christian faith, that you approach it with the same sense of humility as you are framing yourself with regards to Islam, because you're clearly ignorant of what Christianity is.
I don't see anything there. So to me, it was the only logical choice in the end.
I mean, as you're
That's not logic. That is a coward running to the bully so that he doesn't get bullied.
saying this, I'm sure many people are like ecstatic and extremely happy. It's a great thing for everyone, honestly, because, you know, just anyone coming into Islam is you know, the Prophet Muhammad SAW told us better than the world and everything in it.
Yeah.
But imagine now somebody of major influence. I mean, you're the most Googled person on the planet. I'm not sure if you still have
I think Putin might have beat me as of last week, but I think it's between me and Putin at the moment. But I don't want to lose to Putin. Look, Putin's the big G. I don't want more enemies. Like it's fine, Vladimir. You can have it.
I never thought I'd hear you saying that statement.
Yeah.
Putin beat me last year.
Yeah. I think we're certainly the most Googled.
But no, it's definitely something beautiful, and a lot of people have. You know, you'll be surprised at how many women as well. Like, because obviously the accusations of misogyny and stuff, which you know, but a lot of women, alhamdulillah, especially in the Muslim world, they're absolutely happy. In fact, let me tell you a story.
And okay, so I mean, we're getting a bit of a sales pitch here, and I think as Christians we need to recognise a couple of things. Before I return to speaking about Andrew Tate's comments, the first thing that we need to recognise is how dawah is now being targeted towards celebrities, and also how those Muslims who are doing dawah are seeking to build momentum. And one of the ways that they seek to build momentum is by constantly appealing to the fact, oh, this person's become a Muslim, oh, that person's become a Muslim, oh, this person's become a Muslim. And it creates cultural traction. The only church that I've ever seen do this in similar fashion is the Orthodox Church, and particularly the Orthodox Church in America. And I think all Christians everywhere need to get a bit more savvy about how we deliver cultural messages. And one of the things that we need to be doing is cultivating this sense of momentum. Certainly, you know, some brothers in the Christian world, particularly in the Christian world dealing with Islam, we've started to feel that momentum, and we're talking about it amongst the Muslim in our talks with Muslims, because there are more Muslims becoming Christians than ever before. Right now, I know a sister who is a confessor who is, you know, possibly being pushed out of her own home because she's become a Christian. I know another one who has been pushed out of their own home. And it's about us being able to counter the narrative that the Muslim da'i are trying to construct. Now, he talked about God having boundaries, and Christianity certainly has that. Christianity, we do believe as Christians that we are supposed to be servants of God and to find our vocation and to do that vocation well. And there is a problem in Western spirituality that Andrew Tate is speaking into. But we need, and that is a kind of fluffy spirituality that lots of churches are affected by in the West. Particularly, I'm going to speak in my own context, particularly within the Church of England. This is a big problem for a sort of fluffy spirituality. But we've got to understand where that comes from. It doesn't come from Christ's teachings. It comes from the absence of Christ's teachings. It comes from replacing Christ's teachings with culture. And Andrew, let's assume that he was a Christian. I've not heard him say that, and I have not heard him claim that even in this video. But let's just assume that he was a Christian. He's the kind of person who looks which way the crowd seems to be running, and then he runs to it. He goes to the strong gang because he wants to be in with the strong. But that's not the true expression of manliness. The true expression of manliness is that you defend the weak. It is that you defend the powerless, and it is that you stand up to bullies. You don't join them. You stand against them. And when you see a problem, when you see something wrong within your community, you don't run to the enemies of that community who are opposed to that community. What you do is you look within yourself to find what resources and tools and energy and strength and abilities you have within you to make your community better. And right now, the Western church is in a bad place. There's no getting around that. It is a fact. And that is why every Christian needs to look within themselves and ask what resources, what abilities, what skills I can use to make the church stronger and triumphant over her enemies. You know, if you look at true heroism that we celebrate in history, that every culture celebrates in history, it is when faced with unassailable odds, men of courage choose to fight against an unconquerable foe, an enemy that is greater. You think of the Greeks who fought at the pass, I think it was called Hermopylae, the gates, the famous 300 that fought against Xerxes and his attempts to conquer Europe. You think of the Knights of Malta against the Ottoman hordes at the Battle of Malta. You think of the Serbs at Kosovo. You think of the Knights Templar, always first in, always last out, always outnumbered. The true hero is the one who, rather than running to betray his community to its enemies because he thinks that his enemies are strong, decides that my community is weak, but I will fight for it anyway. And that's what real courage looks like. That's what real manliness looks like. And the reality is, Andrew demonstrated that he is a weak man. He is a weak man because rather than use his skills, his abilities, his resources, his strength, his talent to raise up a stronger church that could defend itself against Islamists and against liberals and against communists, what did he do? He swapped sides. He swapped sides because he thought this other group's stronger than the group that I belong to. That's not strength. That is cowardice. The reality is, a man like Andrew Tate, what he should have done, he should have gone, okay, my church is weak, but I'm a kickboxer, I'm wealthy. What I'll do is I'll set up schools to teach Christians how to kickbox and to behave like men so that they'll be able to defend the church. And that is exactly what the church needs. It needs Christians who have that martial discipline to teach the church once again how to be knights, how to be men of war, how to be men of fighting, without being thuggish, but that's what it needs. And the thing is, if the church had more of that, Andrew Tate might never have abandoned the faith. As Christians, we've got a lot of work to do, but the answer is not to turn tail, turn coat, and change sides. The answer is to look within ourselves and to ask ourselves what we can do to make the church stronger. Okay, now I don't know if we're going to get anything more.
Just before I came here today,
let's see if we can find what we've got.
Meet the man who holds the current world record for knowing the most languages.
And if you say anything, you know, you have to kind of. She said, "I can't really do that because that's from the position."
Wow.
So you only the fact that, you know.
Okay.
What's crazy is, yeah, the first
representation of what's really.
And I mean that's crazy to hear. And what's most crazy is, yeah, the fervor behind this idea that I'm somehow extremist is truly. It's truly clown world. Like I've sat as a professional and analyzed my content and understood which things can be taken out of context and which things were said in a way perhaps they shouldn't have been said before I was massively famous. But we have to sit here and understand that. So
I think
anybody on the planet.
I think the topic of his conversion seems to have come to an end. So we'll just stop that. We'll take that out. So there we go, guys. That's my response to Andrew Tate, and my message to his fans is this: if you're a Christian, Andrew Tate speaks to the church in pointing out, because of his own inner weakness, he has fled from the weakness that he perceives in the church, and we need to make the church stronger. We need a more muscular Christianity, but the answer is not to despair as he did, not to run as he did, not to turn into a turncoat as he did. The answer is to put your hand to the plow and to make the church stronger. And to those of you who are perhaps Andrew Tate fans, who are not Christian, whether you're a Muslim or whether you're an atheist, his description of Christianity is completely false. He is making a sociological criticism of cultural Christianity and Western liberalism. And he's conflating real Christianity with Western liberalism and its cultural expressions, cultural Christianity, which has always been a danger within the church down through history. But the reality is that isn't really what it is to be a Christian. And his description of Christianity is a false one. Don't take Andrew Tate as your teacher about Christianity. He does not know what he's talking about. Come and speak to real Christians, Christians like myself. The point of the Christian life is to live a life of heroic virtue. That is how you could sort of sum up the Christian life in a single phrase. And the Christian man is supposed to be a Christian knight who is both gentle to the weak and hard to the jihadi and hard to the militant. That is what a Christian man is meant to be about. And unfortunately, Andrew Tate could have been that man, but he chose not to be. And from what I can gather, the little bits that I know about his life, it seems that he was never aspiring to be either a man of virtue, heroic virtue, or a Christian knight. He just chose to be a celebrity, and then he chose to become a Muslim celebrity because his key value is strength, not truth. And that, unfortunately, is not how you decide what truth is. And so, guys, I leave it to you to be better than Andrew Tate. If you're a Christian, be better than Andrew Tate. If you're an atheist, be better than Andrew Tate. And if you're a Muslim, be better than Andrew Tate. That's kind of my response to his conversion. Now, I do believe in the right to reply. And so if Andrew Tate does want to come and reply to what I've said, he's more than welcome. Anyone that I speak about should be given the right to reply. I think that's only fair. So, good night, God bless, and take care.